Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, F. Scott Field, and I'm flying solo tonight. Tonight, we have with us two very special guests from Texas Women's University, Allie Smith and Elizabeth Orozco. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us tonight. One thing these ladies both have in common, they both attend Texas Women's University in a unique program. It's a DPT to a PhD program, and it's something that we've talked about on this show ad nauseum. There's just not enough ways for the PT students to transition into some form of, terminal degree, and this is a great opportunity. So, ladies, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your academic journeys and how they got you to where you are today. Allie, we'll start with you, and then Elizabeth will follow up with you.
All right. I went to PT school at WashU in St. Louis. I graduated in 2014 and then decided from there to do an orthopedic residency, which took me down to Harris Health System in Houston, Texas. I stuck around the Houston area to finish a manual therapy fellowship through Optum. I completed that in 2017, and I'm still here in Houston working for Harris Health, and I am part of the ortho residency faculty there now.
All right. So I have a little bit of a different background. I am actually a DPT student at Texas Women's University right now, part of the fast track program. So I started my DPT education back in August 2016 and actually will be graduating this upcoming May. TWU offers the fast track program for DPT students as a way to continue that post-professional education. And so I wasn't totally interested at first, but as I got more information and got deeper into the research at TWU as part of my critical inquiry project, in addition to also doing a little bit of research with my DPT faculty advisor, realized this was something that I had a passion for. And so I applied, and I actually just began the PhD program this past summer, so summer of 2018, and I will be completing my first year this May.
Very cool. So what made you ladies decide to pursue a PhD, and what are your plans after finishing the PhD?
After physical therapy school, my big focus was mostly on developing my skills to become a better PT. I thought I got a really good foundation at WashU, but I knew that I could be better, so I thought a residency would be the fastest way to do that. That's also why I did the fellowship afterwards. And after, getting more skills and feeling like I got my feet under me a little bit, I just thought that I could maybe do more good by getting a PhD. I really enjoy teaching. I have a lot of questions that I would like to answer and try to solve, and I just felt that maybe that was a better fit for me and where I belong and a better way to give back.
So I have always had a passion for teaching, and when I found out I could combine that passion with my love for physical therapy, I started to consider the PhD program. I sought advice from my DPT faculty advisor, kind of asked about how he got his PhD because he recently just graduated from the University of Puerto Rico. And he allowed me also to get involved in some research that he was doing. I went from just editing some of his manuscripts to helping him run stats and now helping him write some of those manuscripts. My experience with the critical inquiry projects that we've been asked to complete as part of the DPT requirements has increased my interest. And so through all that, like I mentioned, I decided to apply last spring. My end goal with this PhD is to ultimately, once I graduate, to teach here and there, maybe 1 to 2 classes a year and practice more as a clinician so that I can get more experience in the clinical setting, but then transfer to more academics after about 15 years of practice, and hopefully become part of a faculty team at a local university.
Wow, you ladies are absolutely on the ball. I mean, you've got a plan, you've got goals. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in the EDD program, and I still don't to this day. I'm trying to figure it out. So kudos to you for laying down a plan and following it. Are there any helpful prerequisites or steps or paths or tips that you would recommend to people who maybe want to do a PhD or maybe thinking about, going through a PhD program that may make it a little easier or have them more prepared for it?
Sure. I would say be sure that you want to do it because it's a pretty big time commitment. There's a financial commitment. But if this is something that you really want to do, I would just start talking to more people. That's where I started. It was really helpful. I'm lucky that here in Houston, I have so many people to reach out to, and they're more than willing to help me. They've really gone out of their way to help me. So I would just reach out to somebody who has maybe gone through one, or faculty that you're connected with, whether it's your previous PT school or one nearby. And then I would say definitely be organized, know how to manage your time. You're pretty much going to be responsible for yourself and your own learning. So if you could handle that, then go for it.
I'd say from a student perspective, or those who are about to graduate and thinking about this, DPT students getting ready to graduate, getting involved in more research than what the DPT requirements are in that program. I had the opportunity to become a TA for one of the classes, so getting that teaching experience to say, hey, if I'm going to do this, am I going to enjoy teaching at this level? So I had an opportunity to be a TA for anatomy in the last couple of years. And also just getting to learn a little bit more about research, joining a journal club, maybe helping clinicians or faculty with editing manuscripts, see if that's something that you are passionate about and that you enjoy learning, because as Ali mentioned, it is a big time commitment. Nobody's going to hold your hand through this, and learning how to manage and juggle your time, especially as a working clinician, I can imagine is not easy. And so really considering this before going forward takes a lot of thought, and it personally took me about a year of thought before I said, okay, let's go ahead and jump the gun on this one. So
yeah, that's awesome. I remember, I was a full-time clinician while working through my EDD, and I don't know what I was thinking, actually, to be honest. Probably not the wisest decision, but people do it all the time, and we survive somehow. We find a way. Is there any sort of alternative PhD programs or anything that you guys have seen in your studies so far and in talking and networking with other people, just as far as other PhD programs that you've seen in other models across the U.S.?
Sure. I know TWU offers the unique experience to do the PhD while you are a DPT student. That's pretty unique. There are, I think, other schools that offer that as well. Then there are several other programs that offer the PhD for somebody who's already been out and working for a while and have their DPT, so like an external DPT candidate. The TWU PhD is in physical therapy, so that's one option, but I know there's a ton of programs out there in rehab science or in movement science or in biomechanics. So I would look for a program that it fits your needs and fits what you're looking for, because there are a lot of options out there. And then PhD isn't the only option either. There's the Doctor of Science, and then like you did with the EDD. So there are quite a few options out there.
Yeah, I found very similar results to Allie. I didn't do much of a search before applying, but did consider even getting a PhD in something different than physical therapy. And as mentioned, there are a bunch of PhDs in rehab sciences, movement disorders, movement sciences. I know that very few universities offer that dual DPT to PhD program. And they all work very differently in terms of requirements. And I know some schools even require the students to apply for the PhD program when they apply for the DPT program, which is kind of scary. And the thought that I don't know if I would have known by then if that's exactly what I wanted to do. But I agree with Allie, really making sure that you know that you want a PhD in physical therapy, or for somebody who might be wanting to learn something different. I have my professor has a PhD in anatomy, and it has actually opened a lot of avenues for him, and he's gotten to take that insight and utilize it and help teach us his different things that he's learned with that PhD in anatomy.
Yeah, I'd like to take some credit and say that I knew what I was doing when I signed up for the EDD, but I mean, realistically, in the back of my mind, I think I knew I wanted something a little bit different. And like you said, it does open other avenues. I mean, I could literally teach education now in an undergrad setting or even a graduate school setting, which is kind of neat. I didn't ever expect that to happen, but I have had a couple opportunities come to me that involved education. So, again, I'm still trying to figure it out, and I think hope that's okay. I think we're tough on ourselves sometimes when we don't really know a direction and what we want to do. And I think you guys have brought some really good information as far as outlines and stuff. And speaking of which, could you guys give us a little bit about the outline of your program? I think there's two separate really good perspectives here as far as classwork versus research and the approximate timeline for that.
Sure. I think one of the big pros of Texas Women's is you can really make an independent plan that works for you. They have almost like a grid of certain classes that are offered at certain times. So you can look at your schedule and sign up and figure out what works best for you. Once you begin, you have 10 years to finish it. So if you have a big life event like get married or have a kid or something, you could take an extended amount of time off and be just fine. Or if you're more like me and you want to blaze on through as fast as humanly possible, you can do that too.
Yeah, I had 4 years to finish mine, and that was probably too much, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Done.
the faster the better.
Yeah.
So they really let you do whatever you think you can handle. The only real requirement is that you do 2 semesters where you're considered a resident, so it's at least 6 credits. But most of the classes are either online or hybrid, where you could do maybe 2 or 3 weekends a semester in person, which is really great. It's convenient for me because I live in Houston, but there's a person in our class that lives in Germany and they make it work. So I think they really do a good job of letting you kind of forge your own path.
For my path's been a little bit different. So for the fast track DPT to PhD program, they start us off with 1 class per semester. And so that's what I've been doing in conjunction with my DPT courses. And so I actually have a meeting with the faculty advisor to go over my plan. But the idea is to have me graduate with a PhD in 3 or more years after I complete the DPT. So kind of giving me that advantage. Another good thing about TWU and the fast track program is that I'm allowed to use 38 of my credit hours towards my 90 credit hours needed in order to earn a PhD. So I've actually gotten to use a little bit of my DPT coursework for the PhD program, that thus putting me ahead in that nature. And I think that as I go forward, the expectation is to take at least 2 classes each semester to kind of speed up the process. And that's what I'm looking forward to after graduation, is to start taking those 2 courses each semester and then eventually begin working on my dissertation work.
Yeah,
And
go
those
ahead.
credits that apply are huge, because not only does it save you time, it saves you quite a bit of money. I think I have to take 12 extra credits, which isn't a huge amount. Thankfully, because I have the DPT, I don't have to get the full 90. A big chunk of that is already done from the external DPT that I got, but to have an additional 12 credits knocked off of that is pretty substantial. So for the DPT students that know that they want to do this, what an awesome opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say I had this similar opportunity through St. Augustine. It was 3 of the courses from the transitional doctorate overlapped the EDD, so I was able to kind of transfer those over, which it probably saved me about $12,000 if I had to guess, and almost a full year. So yeah, I think we're having a conversation nowadays smartly, around cost. It just, it has to make sense from a financial standpoint as well. There has to be some form of return on your investment for these degrees, or it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I think we're having a lot of trouble getting DPTs to go into terminal degree paths, because it's already right up against the bubble as far as how much we're going to make. There's a relative glass ceiling, with PTs at some point where 10, 20 years of experience and you're tapped out. You're just not going to make any more, if you're just going to a normal 9 to 5. So, it has to make sense to be able to pay your student loans back, for sure. But would you ladies, speaking of cost, would you mind outlining a little bit about the approximate cost that you think the program will run you by the time you're all said and done?
I definitely have that spreadsheet somewhere, but it's very affordable. Being a Texas resident and it being a public school, I was pleasantly surprised at how affordable it was, especially after the private PT school price tag that I had earlier. Just looking at a regular semester here, taking 2 classes, so 6 credits, is about $27.50. So that would be like 1 semester. That's tuition, that's fees, that's everything.
Yeah, that's really not that bad. I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I say this time and time again, but I feel like I did school wrong. Like, I went to a private university for undergrad, a state school in North Carolina. I was a resident by then for grad school. Then I went back to a private school again to finish the DPT and do the EDD. And if I had to do it all over again, I'm going to preach it to my kids. 2 years of junior JUCO and go to community college, 2 years of state school to get your BA, and then whatever grad school you want to go to, preferably in state, and just keep it as cheap as possible. Because again, it's just all about the student loan, and that bubble's about to burst. I think we hear that on this show time and time again. What's the biggest issue? It's cost. So I don't know when and I don't know how, but it's about to burst, I think. So
Have to agree with you there.
Sitting on the edge of our seats. Elizabeth, what about the fast track? What does that look like?
So I continue to pay the DPT tuition, which for TWU is relatively inexpensive. I think it's about $36,000 for all 3 years. So especially if you're and I have in-state tuition. I did do a little bit of research. I know it's about $250 or $273 on average per hour for any graduate courses at TWU. So then you times that, we have all of our classes are about 3-hour credit classes. And so times that by 3, you get about $700 and then add the fee. So I'm my goal with cost is to be able to pay, once I graduate, to be able to pay this out of pocket, save a little bit of extra every semester, every 6 months or so, put it away towards this and be able to pay this out of pocket in cash. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to do my PhD at TWU, because the relative inexpense of the program.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, really affordable, and then again, at the end, you culminate in a terminal degree, which any way you look at it's going to help you out in the long run. You'll be able to use it in one way, shape, or form, I promise, especially if CAPT kind of keeps those 50% ratios of terminal degrees to non-terminal degrees for DPT staff. So we'll see how that shakes out. But what are some of the strengths and weaknesses that you guys are finding in some of the didactic work and some of the coursework that you're going through right now?
I think I already mentioned you can kind of go at your own pace, which I know I really appreciate. Another strength of the program, I believe, is the freedom to develop your own projects. Again, like, you can really take this wherever you want it to go. You could do more quantitative, you could do more qualitative. You could look at any population, you could look at patients, you could look at clinicians, you can look at students. You develop it yourself. Whereas I think with a lot of other programs, maybe you hop on board with a faculty member who already has a line of research in something, and you assist them with continuing on with that, which, I don't know, sometimes that sounds nice to have some direction and like hop on board and work with somebody who's already established. But at the same time, it's really nice where I can pretty much do whatever I want, as long as it's, a solid project that's going to contribute to something eventually.
Yeah, I think just being 1 year into this program, the ability to work on at least one course while I take my DPT courses, they haven't been as strenuous. And like Ali mentioned, I can pick the courses that are not easy, but not as difficult during this time when I'm trying to manage completing the DPT, doing my rotations, and trying to do at least one PhD course each semester. The faculty have been great in terms of investing their time. They really care about each student and the success of each one. And I found that it's real, like I said, the program is really tailored towards the working clinician. And I think that's important, especially when, like you mentioned, CAPT is really pushing for that 50% of professors to have a terminal degree. How can we make this manageable for the working clinician to go back to school? And so having that flexibility to do a lot of the courses online, or meeting, 1 or 2 weekends on the weekend, 1 or 2 weekends out of the semester, are really the strengths of the program that I've found thus far.
I'd like to second the supportive faculty. I got to Houston. I had no affiliation with any programs down in Texas, and the faculty at Texas Women's here in Houston have gone out of their way to help me out and make me feel welcome. And I just haven't really experienced that anywhere else before. And I just think, I don't know, I think that's definitely one of the biggest strengths of the program that is going to be really hard to find if you're like Googling what programs are. I think that's why it's important to talk to people if you're interested in doing a PhD, because they can give you some insight onto how it really runs. And I'm just very, very grateful to be a part of this program.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know a handful of the faculty there, and they're all great people. So I definitely support what they're doing down there. Would you ladies mind telling us a little bit about your dissertation projects or your research, or if you don't want to dive into it too deeply, just areas of passion for you?
Oh, the ultimate question. I wish I had a more solid idea. Right now, I just have lots of big ideas and big interests that I'm really hoping this summer to help narrow it down a little bit. But
If it
I'm
makes
more.
you feel any better, I went through 3 IRB revisions before I got my idea finally narrowed down. So don't worry about it. It'll come. It'll come.
Well, I guess you have to have an idea first. I mostly just have interests at this time, and they're definitely more qualitative in nature. I am interested in resilience and burnout, the student debt problem, mental health of PT students, PTs, our patients. I think I work for a community hospital down here in Houston, and I see social determinants of health being something that's super interesting. I love everything Brene Brown says with regards to shame and vulnerability. The patients that I treat are really unique. I feel like they're often the ones that are excluded from every study because they don't speak English or they have many comorbidities. So I really don't have a solid plan right now, but I have lots of interests, and hopefully this summer I'll be able to nail something down.
I currently in the same boat. I've been considering a lot of different options. I have worked this last year to help my DPT faculty advisor with projects in regards to the HIV population. We've looked at balance in the HIV population as it is a large problem. How does balance affect them? In addition to, we've looked at also a lot of people are asymptomatic in their balance and their postural instability, but have actually demonstrated some balance deficits when tested. I've helped a little bit with diabetes, the diabetes population, looking at balance in that population. But for my critical inquiry project had a totally different focus and looking at web-based interventions to promote physical activity in individuals with spinal cord injury. So my areas of interest are everywhere. I've out in the clinic started developing an interest at looking at EMG studies for the most practical exercises for the best recruitment of different muscles. And so I had this conversation yesterday, where do I go with all these ideas, and hoping to, nail something within the next year or so, but hoping that my experience as a clinician that will soon start kind of help narrow those ideas, and I'll be able to pick a topic.
Yeah, there's no real rush on that stuff. Like, just get a huge whiteboard, jot down a bunch of ideas, or I keep a little pad in my front pocket anytime I've got ideas, and I just keep writing them down. Some of them are pretty terrible, but some of them end up being pretty decent, and they lead to other things. So, just keep writing them down, keep thinking. I think, if you're pursuing a terminal degree, there's a good chance you're a lifelong learner. So I think you'll be all right. Eventually you'll narrow it down. And if you don't, you'll go through the IRB several times and they'll help you narrow it down. I promise, from personal experience. But what is some advice or one golden nugget, like a tip that you would give someone considering a PhD program?
I would say if you have an interest or a passion for teaching, or if you have burning questions and you want to find the answer, I would say go for it. It's such a cool opportunity. And I guess I'm biased. I really love school, but I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to learn more, especially when it gets to be about a topic or a subject or something that you're really, really passionate about.
I would say, if this is something you're considering, and something that I was told, look at the different universities that offer PhD programs. look at how much they emphasize teaching versus the research. One thing I really do like about TWU's program is they highlight the teaching aspect of it in the program. And you can go to universities where they're NIH driven and they're producing big research projects with big grants with little instruction on how to become a good professor, or you can go to a smaller university and kind of get the best of both worlds. And so I think really looking into what do you want out of your PhD program and what is the experience you're looking for is really going to help determine, one, if you want to do it, and number two, where you want to do it.
Yeah, that is excellent advice, ladies. You're both such an inspiration. I love what you guys are doing. We like to wrap with this one final question we ask all of our guests. If you could change one aspect of higher education, whether it be DPT or a terminal degree, what aspect would you change and how would you change it?
I have two things. One, you've heard probably every single episode, and that's cost. I think a cool idea is the flipped classroom model. I can read books and I can read PowerPoints on my own. I think it would be super cool to show up to school and get more of the meat and potatoes done and have the harder discussions and the problem solving and the critical thinking piece. I think that could be maybe one way to drive the cost down a little bit. But the other thing that I think I would change would be more of an emphasis on the quote unquote soft skills. I think they're far more important than we give them credit for. Obviously, being able to get through the rigors of a program is important, but it's seemingly those intangibles like listening and communication and connecting with other people that's so important to be a successful physical therapist, that I don't know if there'd be a way to screen for that more in applicants, or to have more classes to help develop those skills. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to see.
Allie, it's funny, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. I had that one written down because,
Sorry.
No, you're fine. That is something that we talk about, in the DPT education. And as I went back to class this week after finishing my final rotation, and the biggest thing that everybody mentioned was, the thing that mattered most in my rotation was my soft skills, my ability to connect with patients. And in my DPT education, we had one class that focused on psychosocial issues and having those difficult conversations with the patients who are struggling with mental disorders, depression, anxiety. How do you talk to the individual with chronic pain? And I really wish there was more of that, because I feel that, yes, you can teach the hard skills, but sometimes the soft skills are harder to develop and learn to make more of a automatic response when you're faced with somebody who has depression, or ask you a difficult question in the clinic. But I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that's what really sets apart a good clinician from a great clinician, is that person who's able to establish that rapport and connect with the patient within the first few minutes of their visit.
Yeah, you guys both hit the nail on the head. I think Zach Gabar and Steph Allen are doing some really good things with the Level Up initiative. Check those out if you haven't already. We'll put it in the show notes. But it's all about soft skills and communication skills, and some things that we tend to overlook a little bit, or just kind of brush to the side because they're supposed to be soft and easy, when in reality we're finding they're a lot more difficult than that, and they're a lot deeper than that. So speaking of the show notes and links, ladies, where can people find you if they want to ask any follow-up questions or just want to reach out to you on social media and chat?
I think the best place for me, Allie, would be Twitter. My handle is @AllieSmithDPT.
I would agree. The best place would be Twitter as well, and my Twitter handle is Elizabeth OR and the number 12.
All right, we'll put those in the show notes as well. I don't know why PTs flock to Twitter so much, but we do. It's a thing. I don't know why. It just is. Well, ladies, thank you again so much for your time and for coming on tonight. It was really a pleasure to talk to you and hear about these neat terminal degree programs that are out there. And, I hope this kind of gets the ball rolling and the conversation started about what is out there and realize that, it's not easy, but it can be done. You just got to do your due diligence and find a program that works for you. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.